For decades now, family-owned vineyard and winery Villa Maria has had a strong focus on environmental responsibility and sustainability, driven by its owner, Sir George Fistenich. Both Sir George and his business have been recognised with a vast number of awards for both its wine and business activities over the years. This emphasis on sustainability has resulted in many improvements in energy use and a reduced environmental footprint across the business, as well as some ambitious goals for organic wine production.
Villa Maria is a family-owned wine business. It was started off by the founder, Sir George Fistenich, in 1961. Very much as a one-man band when he started, but now it's probably the biggest family-owned wine company in New Zealand. The focus from Sir George has always been about the quality of the wine, and I think now we have been the most awarded wine company for 34 years in a row. So that's really been our focus, about making really, really top quality wines. Organics is a big part of what we're aiming at doing. That's something that started in the late 1990s, and it was something that was really being pushed by Sir George. But it's not just about organics. I mean, if you want to have a sustainable business, it really involves the whole business. So there's a lot of different things we do, from the organics to the carbon emissions measurement and reduction scheme we're involved in. Even all our vineyards are under sustainable wine growing, and we also operate under the ISO 14001 scheme. So it's a whole of business thing rather than just one thing alone. It would be fair to say that when we started on this journey, there was no real demand from the market at all. In fact, I think that back in, say, the year 2000, if you visited some of our customers overseas and started talking about sustainability or the environment, they'd probably fall asleep on you, because they just tell us about the wine. We don't want to hear that stuff. I'd have to say right now, when we go overseas and talk to our customers, they say, well, tell us how you make your product. Is it ethically produced? Is it sustainably produced? So there's definitely a market driver now, but it wasn't something that we thought of at the start of the journey. We have some fairly ambitious goals around the organics. We had our first certification in 2007, and then by, I think, 2012, about 30% of the company-owned vineyards were organically managed, if not all certified. We've actually increased our vineyard area since then, and the vineyards that we bought were conventional vineyards, so that number's dropped back a bit. But by 2020, we're looking at about 50% of company-owned vineyards. We've got to take into account if we make new purchases along the way. But it's more than just organics, I suppose. You can't really just turn a light switch and be instantly sustainable, and all human activity has some impact on the environment. So it is a matter of saying, well, how can you make incremental steps to continuously improve? So to that matter, I mean, organics is one part of it, but reducing our carbon emissions is another, reducing our waste to landfill, that's another thing that we're focused on. So there's a whole lot of different strands. And what we try and do is involve people within the business to come up with the innovations, with the ideas. We can look at the worm farm here at Villa Maria. That really came from an innovation from somebody who was working in the kitchen and seeing the waste going into the rubbish skip, and hey, there's got to be a better way.
This is fully BioGrow certified block of Verdelho grapes. It's a thick-skinned grape, so it's resistant to botrytis. It can handle the Auckland rain and humidity compared to some of the other varieties of grapes. So it works very well organically. This is 1.5 hectares, and there's another 7.5 that's conventional vineyard. On the BioGrow side of things is more monitoring your soils, monitoring the nutrition, and that's some of the main differences to conventional growing. We do a drench in the 2 drenches of fish and seaweed, and we've got our own worm tea that go under the rows. And it's all about what the soil's doing, so we're just boosting and feeding the soil. There's no weed spray, no weed spraying in organics. So what we do is we have a duo-cut undervine mower. So that does passes, you can see through there, just to suppress the grass. We've got some the rows that have been rotary hoed up, and then we do planting of chicory, felicia and buckwheat. The flowers will bring in all the beneficial insects that then go and attack the mealybug and scale and the ones that we don't want.
We're right here in the Auckland winery. This takes grapes from our Auckland vineyard, and also it takes grapes from Gisborne and Hawke's Bay areas. So we do fermentation, but we also bottle all our wine from Auckland. To start with, the environmental sustainability was really very much a part of the design of the whole building. So a lot of use of natural light, and when we came here to build here, there were old buildings on site, and we recycled the old building materials back into the base course of the new building. So right from the very start, we had that environmental responsibility objective. But in the actual operation of the winery, we make aromatic white wines in New Zealand. We're famous for them all around the world. And to make the aromatic white wines, you apply refrigeration during the fermentation to keep those aromas in. And refrigeration, like your fridge at home, it creates heat. And what we do at our wineries is we capture that waste heat and we store that energy and we use it later on in the process. And that's one of the big things that we've done. It was quite a lot of capital to set it up in the first place, but it does pay back over time. So basically free energy. Villa Maria was the first major wine company in the world to go 100% screw cap. And you might ask, well, what's that got to do with sustainability? But back before that, in the 1990s, about 8% of wine was being spoiled by faulty corks. So making the move back then in the early 2000s was a very, very brave move, and going to 100% screw cap. So that meant that every single bottle of wine that we sent out went exactly as the winemaker intended. Now, as we went on the sort of carbon reduction path, we looked at where our carbon emissions were coming from. And one of the big things was packaging with wine. So Villa Maria lobbied the glass company to reduce the weight of the glass bottles, and across the board we reduced the weight of our glass bottles by 10%. We did quite a fair bit of research into what's the best way to package wine. A glass bottle is infinitely recyclable. So we've been involved with the Glass Packaging Forum about getting initiatives for the whole of the country to recycle glass bottles better. So the more we can get back into the furnace as a glass bottle, then rather than getting into the landfill, that's got to be better for the environment.
This program was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.